I never thought I'd be standing in the back of a church, watching my parents beam with pride as my younger sister walked down the aisle while plotting how to ruin the very day they had spent years planning. But here I was, gripping an envelope in my hand, its contents heavy with secrets that would shatter their perfect moment, and maybe my family forever. It all started when I turned 25, the age at which I was supposed to gain access to the trust fund my grandparents had set up for me. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to give me a solid foundation, a chance to start my own business, buy a home, or finally feel financially secure after years of scraping by on minimum wage jobs. When the lawyer called to confirm the transfer, I felt a surge of excitement. This was my ticket to freedom, my reward for enduring a childhood filled with sacrifice and responsibility. But the money never came. Instead, I received a vague email from the lawyer saying there had been unforeseen complications. Confused, I reached out to my parents, only to be met with evasive answers. "It's being handled," my father said dismissively. "Don't worry about it." "Don't worry about it," I repeated, incredulous. "That's my future you're talking about." My mother stepped in, her tone soft but firm. "We're doing what's best for the family, Lucas. You'll understand someday." Understand? How could I possibly understand when no one would tell me what was going on? The truth came out months later during a heated argument. Desperate for answers, I cornered them in the kitchen, demanding an explanation. That's when they admitted it. They had drained the trust fund to pay for my sister Isabel's extravagant wedding. "A wedding?" I shouted, my voice cracking with disbelief. "You stole my future so Isabel could have a designer dress and a 5-tier cake?" "It's not just a wedding," my mother snapped, tears welling in her eyes. "It's her special day. She deserves this." "And what about me?" I shot back. "What do I deserve? A lifetime of debt because you decided her happiness mattered more than mine?" The fight ended with me storming out of the house, vowing never to forgive them. For weeks, I avoided their calls, drowning my anger in late-night shifts and cheap whiskey. Every time I thought about the trust fund, a fresh wave of betrayal washed over me. They hadn't just taken my money, they had stolen my dreams, my independence, my ability to plan for a better life. As the wedding date approached, my resentment grew. Invitations arrived in the mail, each one a reminder of what I had lost. Pictures of Isabel in her gown flooded social media, accompanied by captions gushing about how beautiful she looked. Meanwhile, I was working double shifts just to cover rent, eating ramen noodles while she posed in front of luxury cars and flower arrangements worth more than my monthly paycheck. At first, I planned to skip the wedding altogether, let them celebrate without me, let them bask in the illusion of perfection while I stayed far away from their lies. But then an idea began to form, one that twisted and festered in my mind until it consumed me. If they wanted a perfect day, I'd give them one, and then I'd tear it apart. The morning of the wedding, I dressed carefully, choosing a suit that made me look polished and put together. I slipped the envelope into my jacket pocket, rehearsing the words I would say over and over in my head. By the time I arrived at the church, my hands were steady, my resolve unshakable. The ceremony was everything Isabel had dreamed of, elegant, romantic, and disgustingly expensive. As she glided down the aisle in her white gown, my parents sat in the front row, holding hands and smiling like nothing was wrong. Watching them, I felt a pang of sadness, not for them, but for the family we used to be. Once upon a time, we were close. We laughed together, supported each other, celebrated milestones, big and small. Now, we were strangers bound by blood and broken promises. When the officiant asked if anyone objected to the union, I hesitated, my fingers brushing against the envelope in my pocket. This was my moment, the chance to expose the truth in front of everyone they cared about. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the way Isabel looked at her fiancé, her eyes shining with genuine love. Or maybe it was the realization that ruining her day wouldn't fix anything. It would only add another layer of pain to an already fractured family. Instead, I waited until the reception, slipping quietly onto the stage during the speeches. Microphone in hand, I cleared my throat, drawing the attention of the entire room. My parents froze, their smiles fading as they realized what was about to happen. "I want to say a few words," I began, my voice calm despite the storm raging inside me. First, congratulations to Isabel and her new husband. May your marriage be filled with joy and understanding, qualities that seem to be missing in our family these days. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as I pulled the envelope from my pocket and held it up for everyone to see. This is documentation proving that my parents emptied my trust fund to pay for this wedding. A trust fund that was meant to secure my future, not fund someone else's fairy tale. Gasps echoed around the room as I handed copies of the documents to the nearest guests, who passed them along until everyone had seen the evidence. My parents sat frozen, their faces pale with shock. Isabel burst into tears, clutching her bouquet like it might somehow shield her from the fallout. "You took everything from me," I continued, my voice breaking with emotion. "My dreams, my security, my trust, all for this, a single day that will fade into memory while I'm left picking up the pieces." For a long time, no one spoke. The room was eerily silent, save for Isabel's sobs and the occasional whisper from horrified guests. Finally, my father stood, his expression a mixture of guilt and defiance. "We did what we thought was right," he said, his voice trembling. "We didn't mean to hurt you." "Didn't mean to hurt me," I echoed, incredulous. "Then why didn't you ask? Why didn't you explain? Instead, you lied, manipulated, and stole from me like I didn't matter." His silence was answer enough. In the weeks that followed, the fallout was brutal. Friends and extended family took sides, some defending my parents' actions, others condemning them outright. Isabel barely spoke to me, too ashamed to face the consequences of her complicity. As for my parents, they tried to apologize, but their words felt hollow, meaningless. Trust isn't something you can rebuild overnight, especially when it's been shattered so completely. But amidst the chaos, something unexpected happened. For the first time in years, I felt free. Exposing the truth wasn't easy. It cost me relationships, invitations, and even a few sleepless nights, but it gave me back a piece of myself. I wasn't just the victim anymore. I was the architect of my own redemption. Eventually, Isabel reached out, asking to meet for coffee. She looked different, smaller, more vulnerable. Gone was the entitled bride who had walked down the aisle without a care in the world. In her place was a woman burdened by regret. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't realize how much they were taking from you. I thought it was okay because it was for me." Her apology didn't erase the pain, but it was a start. Over time, we began rebuilding our relationship, one tentative conversation at a time. She helped me track down legal options to recover some of the lost funds, though it wasn't nearly enough to make up for what I'd lost. Still, the effort meant something. It showed me that people can change, if they're willing to try. As for my parents, our relationship remains complicated. They apologized repeatedly, but the scars of their betrayal linger. Slowly, painfully, we found ways to reconnect, sharing quiet moments that reminded me of happier times. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Looking back now, I realize that exposing the truth wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my voice. For years, I'd carried the weight of their actions in silence, letting bitterness consume me. Speaking the truth freed me from that burden, allowing me to move forward with clarity and purpose. Life doesn't offer neat endings, no matter how much we crave them. Some wounds may never fully heal, and some relationships may never return to what they once were, but amidst the chaos and pain, there's always a chance for redemption, if we're willing to fight for it. In the end, my parents didn't just steal from me. They gave me an opportunity to rediscover my strength. And while I'll never forget what they did, I've learned that forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing to rise above the past and create something new.